Okay, so I've been digging into this inflammation research you sent over, and wow, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, isn't it?
It is, but like a good rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone throws around the word inflammation these days, but like, do we even really know what it means?
Right. It's definitely one of those trendy health buzzwords.
Yeah.
But the science behind it is really fascinating, and I think understanding it can make a big difference for your health.
I think so too, which is why we're doing a deep dive on it today.
Absolutely. Let's bring it down.
So first things first, what exactly is inflammation?
Well, the way I always think about it is like your body's internal alarm system.
Okay, alarm system.
Yeah, so whenever there's an injury or infection or any kind of threat, really, your body triggers this inflammatory response to protect itself.
So it's like a defense mechanism.
Exactly. Think of it like your own personal healing crew rushing to the scene to fix things up.
I like that, the healing crew.
So, you cut your finger, all of a sudden the alarm bells start ringing, and the body dispatches its team to the injury site.
And that's what causes the redness, the swelling, all that.
Precisely. That's your body in action. Increased blood flow, white blood cells rushing in, all working together to repair the damage.
So is that what they call acute inflammation?
Yes, exactly. That's the immediate, short-term response to an injury or infection.
Like when you stub your toe and it throbs for a bit.
Exactly. It's usually temporary and a crucial part of the healing process. Your research even mentioned a study that found that a quicker acute inflammatory response was actually linked to faster recovery times in certain injuries.
Oh, wow. So it's not always a bad thing?
Not at all. In fact, it's essential. But here's where things get a little tricky. We also have what's called chronic inflammation.
Ah, yes. The not so fun kind.
Right. It's like that alarm system getting stuck in the on position, even when there's no real danger.
So the healing crew is just hanging out, causing trouble.
Sort of. Over time, that constant state of inflammation can actually start to damage healthy tissues and contribute to all sorts of chronic diseases.
Yeah, the research I sent mentioned heart disease, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, even Alzheimer's and cancer were on that list.
It's a pretty long list, and it's growing all the time as researchers learn more about the role of inflammation in disease. And it's not just a vague connection either. For example, one of the studies you sent showed that people with higher levels of a specific inflammatory marker called C-reactive protein had a 25% greater risk of developing heart disease over a 10-year period.
25%, that's a pretty big jump.
It is, and that's just one example. We're learning more and more about how these inflammatory molecules, often called cytokines, can directly damage our cells and disrupt all sorts of bodily processes.
Cytokines, is that what they're called?
Yeah. And they're different types, each with their own specific roles and effects. It's quite complex, really.
Okay, this is blowing my mind a little bit. So basically, inflammation can be both good and bad.
Exactly. It's all about balance. When it's working properly, it's an essential part of healing and protection. But when it's out of control, it can wreak havoc on our health.
So the million-dollar question, what can we do about it? Especially when it comes to that chronic inflammation stuff.
Well, the good news is that there's a lot we can do. And, I think your research does a great job of outlining some really practical steps people can take.
Well, like what? Give me the good stuff.
Well, first and foremost, diet plays a huge role. We all know the drill. Eat more fruits, vegetables, whole grains. But your research also highlighted some specific foods with powerful anti-inflammatory properties.
Oh, I love specifics. Give me examples.
Things like fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, those are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which have been shown to reduce inflammation.
I do love a good salmon fillet.
And you mentioned you're a fan of Mediterranean cuisine. That's fantastic. Olive oil, nuts, seeds, all great sources of healthy fats that can help combat inflammation.
I stocked up on walnuts just the other day, actually. But what about my sweet tooth? Any tips for that?
Ah, yes, the sugar cravings. Well, it's not about deprivation. It's about making smarter choices. Your research talked about berries being a great alternative.
Berries.
Yes, they're loaded with antioxidants and naturally sweet. So maybe instead of reaching for that cookie in the afternoon, you could try a handful of berries with some plain yogurt or something like that.
That does sound pretty good, actually.
And of course, exercise is crucial.
Exercise. Do I have to?
You don't have to become a marathon runner or anything. Even moderate exercise can make a huge difference when it comes to inflammation. Your research actually highlighted a few studies showing that low-impact activities like walking, swimming, or even yoga can be really beneficial.
Oh, okay. That's not so bad. I do love a good walk in the park.
There you go. And don't forget about stress management.
Oh, stress. I feel like that's a constant in my life these days.
Some chronic stress is a major contributor to inflammation. Your research actually pointed to some fascinating studies showing how stress can directly increase the production of those inflammatory cytokines we talked about.
Oh no, the cytokines are back. Okay, so what can we do about stress? Meditation, deep breathing.
Those are definitely great tools, but it's also about identifying the sources of stress in your life and finding healthy ways to cope. Maybe it's setting boundaries at work, making time for hobbies, or just spending more time in nature.
I do love a good nature walk.
See? It all ties together. And on that note, let's not forget the importance of sleep.
Sleep? Really?
Absolutely. When you're sleep deprived, your body produces more of those inflammatory chemicals. It's like hitting the reset button for your body and mind.
You know what? You're right. I definitely need to prioritize sleep more. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. It seems like when it comes to inflammation, it's all about finding that balance, right?
You got it. It's not about avoiding inflammation altogether because it's an important part of how our bodies function.
Mm.
It's about understanding what triggers it, how to manage it, and when to seek help if it's becoming a problem.
Makes sense. And the research you sent has definitely given us a lot to think about and a lot of action steps we can take.
Absolutely. But remember, everyone is different. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about experimenting and finding what works best for you. And of course, always a good idea to talk to your doctor or a healthcare professional, especially if you have any concerns about chronic inflammation.
Always good advice. So are we ready to take all of this knowledge and put it into action?
I think so. We've given you the tools. Now it's up to you to experiment and see what works best for your body.
Awesome. Until next time, happy deep diving, everyone.